welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday, and that means that it's time for me and Ron to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by goodbye to Ron's air conditioning.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, this could be a problem for the entire show, couldn't it?
Yeah, you're very sorry. You're very low volume. I can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got a volume control on your at the top right. You see a little kind of volume controller in the top right. Maybe you can turn that up and get a little bit of volume. I'll let you mess around with it for a minute.
All right.
While I kind of get us started, because we've got a lot to get through today. Of course, we have the news that Jack Smith has brought out a second indictment, or another indictment. It's probably a third indictment, isn't it? This is a brand new grand jury that came as a bit of a surprise to everybody. He's managed to circumnavigate the immunity that the Supreme Court has given Trump, and in the process, as I say, taken everybody by surprise. This is such a great moment, isn't it? That Jack Smith is still on the case, and that it turns out that just ahead of the election, Donald Trump is now facing this charge once again. Should we have a quick mention to that, Ron, before we kind of get into the meat of today?
On the superseding indictment?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it's still just hard for me to hear you. You're real quiet. I can't find how to fix it.
Fix that.
On the superseding indictment. Yes. Okay. It wasn't one of our topics for today, but I'll just sort of shift over onto that. Yeah, because I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on that. It just, I don't know. I can't really offer much on that. Okay. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that last night. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said it took everyone by surprise, because it's one of those things that is it's great news for those who want Donald Trump to be held to account, I guess. You have been posting multiple and reposting multiple images of Donald Trump's Truth Social posts. He is getting, mentally, he is deteriorating at a rate that is actually difficult for most of us to keep up with, I would suggest. I want to start with this kind of video that he posted, or that you reposted, of him suggesting that it was actually God that wants him to be president.
Shouldn't be with you. So,
is there a purpose?
Well,
is there a reason you think you were spared?
I mean, the only thing I can think is that God loves our country and he thinks we're going to bring our country back. He wants to bring it back. It's so bad right now what's happening. When you look at the crime, the horrible things that are happening inside our country, and it can be solved. It can be solved fairly quickly. It has to be God.
Yeah, has to be God. Donald Trump is probably the least godly person on the planet. And now it seems that he has run out of options in terms of winning the election legitimately. So he's like, I'll do the God thing, and then maybe people will be like, well, if God's supporting him, then we have to too.
This is part of a campaign theme that they started maybe a little over a year ago, where which we've discussed in the past, but now this is the first time that he's openly connecting that theme, because the theme was in the past he would have pastors come in and give opening prayers at the rallies, and they would talk about how, he's been chosen by God, he's the savior, he's the Messiah, evil Satanist Marxists have taken over the government and want to destroy America, and Donald Trump is the anointed one by God. And what he has done is taken the assassination attempt, the shooting, and link that up with that previous messaging and saying, look, this proves what these pastors have been saying. All of these pastors have been telling you at my rallies that God has ordained me to be the chosen one. And this shooting proves it. It's a miracle by God that he saved my life for this higher purpose to save America, which is exactly what he's saying there in that new interview with Dr. Phil. And let me just add a little postscript, which is a lot of people have commented that they're shocked that Dr. Phil didn't didn't react. He's 100% a Trump guy. He's always been a Trump supporter. So I'm sorry that people are a little surprised by that, but he's 100% Trump.
I mean, and that's the saddest part of this, isn't it? That again, Donald Trump in this moment, if he was in front of a journalist or an interviewer, somebody who wasn't on his team, that they would be like, what are you talking about, man? This just sounds nuts. But he is, again, facilitated and platformed and given the opportunity to say this stuff. And I feel it's very hard for us because, we live in these kind of progressive bubbles. But I'm of the opinion that as time goes on, between now and November 5, where he unravels more and more, every day there'll be new stuff. It'll become to the point where even Trump supporters are going to be like, ooh, because he's got nowhere else to go, Ron.
Yeah. Well, you do see some of the evangelicals sort of recoil at some of this stuff, especially in light of his recent statements about abortion, where he's backpedaled and pulled back from the pro-life position, knowing that that's going to hurt him in this election. So they have that in the back of their minds, which they're unhappy about. And I think a lot of them are a little bit uncomfortable with this kind of stuff, and I noticed that a lot of the religious pastor type, broadcaster, podcaster type people are also becoming increasingly uncomfortable with this messaging because it's clearly blasphemous. I mean, if you're a real Christian, there's no way that you're gonna believe that Trump is the Messiah sent by God. So, I mean, only just the real fringy type evangelicals are going to buy into something like that. And then when you take that at the same time, when he's, posting that Kamala Harris used oral sex to become vice president, how does that coincide with him being chosen by God right now?
And Hillary Clinton, apparently.
Yeah, that's right.
Them together.
A bit inconsistent. Yeah, with the, I don't think that's really what God wants him to say.
No, for certain. So RFK Jr. is the kind of next missing link in this love triangle. He has he's not ended his campaign. He's suspended his campaign, but in swing states you can still vote for him. No, in swing states you can't vote for him, but everywhere else you can vote for him, even though he suspended his campaign. But he hasn't ended his campaign. That's a kind of précis of what he said in his weird hour-long press conference that didn't make any sense. He's now endorsed Donald Trump. The Kennedy family now have denounced RFK Jr. again. This is interesting, isn't it? Because people can't really decide if this is good for Kamala Harris, good for Donald Trump, bad for Kamala Harris, bad for Donald Trump. What's your opinion? Do you think that this will help the Democratic ticket or not?
No, I mean, I don't think it has any impact one way or the other. I sort of think it's a wash, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. What's interesting, though, is it's become increasingly clear over the last few days that he exacted a price from Donald Trump. See, unlike a lot of these other people who dropped out of the race and endorsed Trump, they were just basically surrendering to get back into his good graces. People like DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy and people like that. Nikki Haley, Nikki, she knows she's not getting any job in the Trump administration, right? She's just looking down the road. But that's not the case with RFK. RFK has made it very clear that he negotiated this, that he is going to have a prominent role in the administration. Yeah. His former running mate, Nicole Shanahan, has also said this. And that role is going to be in charge of public health. We don't know exactly what that position is, but it's going to be in charge of public health in some way. And you see the hashtag MAHA. This is now what Robert Kennedy has done, is sort of taken the MAGA slogan, Make America Great Again, and transformed it and sort of blended it to say he's going to make America healthy again. So his role, apparently, that he's negotiated with Donald Trump in a future Trump administration, is to be in charge of public health, which is crazy because basically his foray into public health has occurred in the last 3 years And it's all been kooky conspiracy theories. This guy is an environmental lawyer. He's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He's never been in charge of public policy for healthcare. He has no qualifications whatsoever, other than the fact that he's become a medical conspiracy theorist, and Donald Trump needed his endorsement.
The irony of him posting that he's going to save America's mental health crisis, considering that he's so obviously mentally ill, it's a shame. You know, I feel sorry for him. And when I was listening to his hour-long press conference that didn't make any sense, it was all over the place. And that's why I was thinking, you know, Donald Trump and RFK Jr. deserve each other, because they're both nuts and they both represent a danger to society.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who sort of remembers RFK from like the 80s and the 90s as the environmental lawyer crusader, I mean, I don't think he was ever especially articulate, but he was a bright guy and at least somewhat focused. But then he went through this dark period of, 15 years where he got heavy into drugs, heavy into all his different affairs, which has been well documented, his messy, nasty divorce, child custody battles, his ex-wife's suicide. And he comes out of all of that. We've got him cutting the head off a whale with a chainsaw, according to his son. We've got him leaving carcasses of animals in Central Park. This guy's just a complete wacko nut job, putting out campaign videos of himself doing shirtless push-ups. And yes, the idea that this guy with this kind of a past is going to be in charge of mental health in America. It's just, we said before that the second Trump cabinet is going to make the first one look not like it was incredibly competent and normal. And here's one guy that's going to be in it, apparently.
It's frightening, isn't it? That we're in a situation where the future of this country is hinging on a madman now joined with another madman, who are both, Trump clearly an enemy of the state in many ways, you could argue, and especially with this new indictment, the United States versus Donald Trump, and then to have a situation where he is joined by somebody who is, equally on another planet. I mean, as I see it only helps Kamala Harris.
I've been watching very closely the dynamic between Trump, RFK, and Vance, because it's looking increasingly obvious that Vance is being sidelined here. I mean, he's being sent out to rural areas. He just did a rally in a horse farm the other day. I mean, he's being used as sort of like a surrogate, less so than a running mate. And Trump is the last few days has been more and more embracing RFK, and their campaign is putting out videos and stuff with Trump and RFK in it now, right. not Trump and Vance. And I think that what it is Trump is enamored with the Kennedy brand, with the Kennedy name. I mean, he grew up where, in New York in the 60s, where the Kennedys were a big name, very, very famous family name throughout the 70s, even the 80s with Ted. And I think that means a lot. Brand name always is, and fame, it always means more to Donald Trump than anybody else. And I think he's completely enamored and sort of a little bit starstruck by RFK, just not basically based on who he is and what he has to say, but because of his name. Yeah. And he talks about that all the time. He's like, when he gives interviews about RFK, he talks about the Kennedy family, royalty in the Democratic Party, and that's the attraction for him.
I would agree that he is very much the kind of person who is drawn to the celebrity of the Kennedy name. But beyond that, we also have to watch out the fact that he might feel it's problematic if RFK becomes more popular than him. He doesn't, we've seen this with J.D. Vance.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think that's something he would check him on. And if if he ever got too uppity, if he ever got too crazy in his public comments, I think that Trump would not hesitate to check him. But I also think, and I think RFK is sort of getting, because look, when the Project 2025 people came out and started bragging that they had a direct line to Trump and that Trump was going to do what was in their plan, that's when the Trump campaign went nuts. And they went nuts because, you know, they didn't want anybody else setting the narrative for their campaign. But now what you have is RFK sort of doing some of the same kind of stuff, where both he and his running mate are out there right now every day talking about what they are going to do in a next Trump administration. I don't think that his campaign is going to be entirely thrilled with that, because I have adopted the strategy, and I've urged media to do this, and the Harris campaign, to wrap RFK's positions around Donald Trump, wrap Trump in RFK, because those positions are wacky. And if RFK is going to be part of an administration, which they're both saying is true, then RFK's positions become Trump's positions, and we'll see how he likes that going forward.
I've just switched mics. Can you hear me any better now?
No, but see, and the funny thing is, I can hear the clips that you play, that those are very loud,
Right.
but I can't hear you very well. But
Very weird. Okay.
we'll do it.
I tell you what I'll do, because I want to, make this work. I'm going to play the commercial break, and then I'll try and fix it, and I'll come back, and we'll see
All
if
right.
I had any success. All right. We'll do that next.
Okay.
If, like me, you've got culinary taste but won't entertain restaurant prices, Cook Unity is the first chef-to-you service delivering locally sourced meals from award-winning chefs right to your door every week. And it's cheaper than other delivery options. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. Cook Unity is a great way to support local chefs and suppliers. Every meal is handcrafted by chefs and made in local micro kitchens, not large production facilities. Your food arrives fresh, never frozen, in packaging that keeps meals fresh in the fridge for up to 7 days. You can pick as few as 4 or as many as 16 meals per week. There are hundreds of dishes to choose from, and the menu is updated constantly. There's options for 7 different dietary preferences. Menus are posted 2 weeks in advance, so you have plenty of time to choose. Experience chef-quality meals every week delivered right to your door. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. That's 50% off your first week by using code UNCOVERED or going to cookunity.com/uncovered. If there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, and reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/uncovered to get 15% off your first order when you use uncovered at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/uncovered and use the code UNCOVERED at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. Oh, look, we're on the wrong side. There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can actually hear you now. This is great. And
I'm
you were
so
blaming it on me.
I did think it was something to do with you because it's always you.
Yeah, usually you're right. Usually
So
is.
from that perspective, I think we're sorted. So apologies to anybody who was put out that the audio was problematic. We should probably restart from now and just have a 2-hour show. What do you think?
People are probably happy that they couldn't hear you, though. To be honest with you,
That's very sweet of you. Yeah. Incidentally, if you want to support our sponsors, you can find their details in the description below. Okay, so RFK Jr. is one of those people who I think is a wild card, and in my opinion, he is. I actually think that because he's nuts and because Trump is nuts, we now have an extra kind of nutty section of this election where it's like, let's put all the weirdos in that section, and then we have clarity over in the other side with Tim Walz, who incidentally is just doing great work at the moment with the.
This is a key point, because for people only look at like what voters can RFK bring to Trump, right? Yeah. And largely who they are is they were like original Trump voters who have sort of maybe become a little disillusioned with him and gravitated over.
Right.
But nobody ever in their analysis thinks about, and I've never heard anybody talk about this, how many votes will they lose because they've joined forces with RFK? Yes. How many moderate voters are out there that are going to go, holy smokes, I was already nervous about Trump. Now he's going to put RFK in charge of healthcare policy? I think he could actually cost him more votes than he gains. Yeah.
I completely agree. And I said, when this was announced, I said, I think this is great for Kamala Harris. I genuinely do. And so because there's now a clear separation of options in terms of the voters' choice. And you either choose the weirdos and the crazies, or you choose those who actually make some sense and aren't claiming that God wants you to be president, or the RFK stuff is just like, I can't even, I tried to make a video, I did make a video, but I tried to find clips from that press conference to put in the video. I could only find 2 or 3 sentences that made any sense. The rest of it was just impossible to know what he was talking about. Let's talk about J.D. Vance, because, of course, he's been missing from this love triangle, which is suddenly become a square. He has been caught on old audio tape yet again. I mean, we keep hearing more and more about his extremely misogynistic views. Weird. I mean, it's linked to this kind of far-right Opus Dei Christian nationalist view of the world, where women should be home cooking and cleaning, men should be hunter-gathering, and if you haven't got 2 children, then you aren't a full family. It's just weird, it's antiquated, it makes no sense, but he just can't deny it because we have the tapes.
And I think our conservative idea is that parents and families should determine what children learn, what values they are brought up with. So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. And that really disorients me, and it really disturbs me. Randy Weingarten, who's the head of the most powerful teachers union in the country, she doesn't have a single child. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone.
So for those that didn't hear, he said people without kids. I think he was referring to teachers. Teachers without kids are destroying the minds of children.
Yeah, they're not qualified to be teachers because if they don't have children, because children, again, when I surfaced that cat lady clip, childless cat lady clip, yes, where he was talking about Harris a month ago or so, his initial claim was to say, oh, it was taken out of context, I was being sarcastic, I was just joking. Since that time, there's been about 15 more clips come out where he says exactly the same thing.
Right, doubling down on the same narrative.
Yeah, it's the same thing. This is what he believes, and he's, what normal people do is they would come out and say, as let's say Harris has done with some immigration stuff, say, I was wrong about that. I've changed my mind. This is my position now. And you take the hit for being called a flip-flopper, but who cares? Yeah. American people don't care if you flip-flop on a couple of issues after you've become educated, right? And so he could do that. He could say, look, I said that, a couple years ago, I've been educated. Or he could own it. He could say, yes, this is what I believe. Instead, he does this third middle ground where he says, oh, no, I was just being sarcastic and kidding. This is what he said on the Sunday shows. And then, because he went and did all the Sunday shows this past Sunday, but they didn't play the clips of him. And so then this is surfaced by the Harris campaign yesterday, this new clip, where again, now he's not just talking. Before he was talking about women in elective office. He was saying women without children should not hold elective office. Now he's expanded that to say teachers. People shouldn't be teachers unless they have kids. So what? Young women, older women, there are women who can have kids. They're not Well, how about this? JD recently converted to Catholic in 2019. Now, you can question the sincerity of that, as I have done, because that's also the time when he decided to get into politics. He suddenly goes from being an atheist. He said he was always an atheist to being Catholic. All right, maybe it was a sincere conversion. But the point is, Catholic schools have nuns teaching children who don't have kids. So he's a Catholic. This conflicts with his own Catholic beliefs. But this guy's just all over the place.
But does this not ultimately end up at the place where Project 2025 wants to deconstruct the Department of Education? They want to do homeschooling because, homeschooling is where a lot of this, far-right Christian extremism is indoctrinated into children. And then they would ultimately like to see schools take on these views and teach children religious instruction in this way. Does it not all point to that?
It's all part of it. Sure. It all feeds into it because those are the same themes that you hear. I think he picked up these things. I really do at these right-wing conferences. I don't think these are original beliefs from him because I've heard these things before from other people. I've heard these things many times from people like Charlie Kirk and others, Ben Shapiro, these kinds of people that are out there, that Elon Musk, who talk about basically treating women as breeders. And that's their primary function in society. And if they fail to breed children, they're letting society down. There's something wrong with them. They're mentally unstable. They're unfit. And they shouldn't play any role in public life. And that's basically his position. And that is about a 20% position in the United States. Probably 20% of the people who agree with him. Most of them are online on right-wing social media.
Musk has got like 14 kids or something, right?
11.
So, 11. Okay, well, there we are. I am just of the opinion that so much of this is performative to play into Vance's enablers, because a lot of the people, Peter Thiel and people like that, people that have enabled him, I think that there's often a quid pro quo. And, he is required to rise to the occasion, convert to Catholicism, take on these extremist views, because he's been given the opportunity to effectively be just a few steps away from the presidency himself. And ultimately, that's what they want.
It's hard to say really what he believes. I mean, this guy's gone through so many different incarnations. He starts out with the hillbilly elegy thing, bootstrap Marines, all that kind of stuff. And he's going to go back into the communities and help people in Appalachia. That was like the original Vance, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes off and does the tech stuff and all that. And then he resurfaces as like this weird right-wing crazy extremist going to all these conferences saying all this nutty stuff. Then he becomes a senator and he sort of stops talking about some of that stuff in the last couple of years because I think in the back of his mind, he's realized that this isn't probably going to play if I have higher ambitions. This might work for me running in a Republican primary in Ohio, but it's not going to work nationally if I have higher ambitions. And also, by the way, as someone who in 15 and 16 was rabidly anti-Trump and now rabidly pro-Trump. So he's like been 6 different people in the last 10 years. It's hard to
I love what Nancy
and an atheist to a Catholic.
Right. Nancy Pelosi, when she was interviewed and she was asked about J.D. Vance and, is it a bad decision or it seems like it's not a great decision to have chosen him as a vice president, and she just was like, good. And I love that because, again, if we're talking about things that play into the hands of Democrats getting votes, it is Trump choosing J.D. Vance. It is RFK switching and joining the Trump campaign and endorsing Trump. All of these things play into Harris and Walz being able to pull more votes and have more clarity about who they are. And for all the criticism of the weird rhetoric, it's working. That they hate being called weird. Trump hates it. It fits J.D. Vance extremely well. It certainly fits RFK. And so now he is going to come under the weird banner as well. I hope they stick with that.
RFK is weirder than both of them combined. and they're both weird. But I mean, RFK is off the charts weird. Yeah. And so, it's just, and Nicole, I mean, that's the other thing. I thought, well, she's just going to go away, right? Oh, no. She's out there doing interviews every day talking about what she's going to do as part of the Trump administration. I just got to imagine he's already disparaged her a number of times and said that, she's a lightweight and she married wealthy. She married the, I think one of the Google guys. I forget. One of the super wealthy tech guy. She was married for 5 minutes to him and then got a huge divorce settlement. I don't know how that really qualifies her either to be in charge of public health policy. She has no background in public health. But she's out there doing interviews talking about what she's going to do, which, I mean, if I'm in the Trump campaign, that's got to be driving me nuts.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. The more that Trump unravels in public, the more extreme his postings and his interviews become and his rallies and his press conferences, the crazier stuff that J.D. Vance comes out with or the stuff is unearthed of him saying, the better, as far as I'm concerned, because it really does create a level of clarity. I was slightly concerned where I watched one of the videos. Kamala Harris's campaign has made cut together some great videos, campaign videos. And there was one where it was like, Trump is trying to seize power, playing on the dictator thing. But I also am of the opinion that a lot of people probably don't understand what that means. And they might actually see Trump being all powerful as being a good thing rather than a bad thing, as in giving the president too much say. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a chance that the misunderstanding of what dictatorship and despots and that means might play badly if they keep ramping it up like this?
I saw the ad you're talking about. They're trying to link it up to Project 2025.
Correct.
That's what they're doing, and trying to say that he wants power, he craves power, and he doesn't recognize checks on that power.
Yeah.
And then showing the Project 2025 agenda, and this is what he intends to do when he gets power. Yeah, I thought the ad was pretty good. I think a lot of the Republicans were mocking it this morning because they were saying, look, Trump has already said disavowed Project 2025. He's already said he has nothing to do with that. So this ad doesn't impact us at all, is what they're saying. But I think that they are still concerned about it. I know some Democrats are sort of getting tired of the Project 2025 messaging as well. And I've heard some say that they think that Harris should move on to other things, considering that Trump, if the public believes, okay, this is not really Trump's agenda, then spending a lot of time on it is not going to be effective, Yeah.
So. Well, yeah, I understand that. I just want to make sure that the Harris campaign understand that there are a percentage of Americans who see Trump having power as a good thing and not as a bad thing.
Well, because I think also there's a lot of Americans who don't think a strong presidency is a bad thing. They would like for presidents to wield more power,
right?
To get more things done. In fact, we've seen, the government has increasingly been run by executive order, which was not the case. 30 years ago, executive orders were pretty rare for presidents to do. And every time they did them, people would go nuts and complain, you can't do anything by executive order. You've got to go, everything has to go through Congress. But those complaints have gone away. Like, it's almost like we have government by executive order now, where Biden too, has had, I think, over 1,000 executive orders that he's issued on policy.
But that's because we don't have bipartisanship in Congress. And
it's hard to get anything done through Congress.
Right.
Yeah. And it's slow. But that's also why I think a lot of the American people are fine with having a stronger president than maybe we had 100 years ago.
And it also plays into the gender roles as well. You know, Trump presenting himself as a strong male versus a weak female.
Yep.
And that is something that, again, when you're talking about power, you have to be very careful about, because...
Well, and you know what plays into that is this first interview tomorrow. You know, as soon as it was announced...
This is the CNN interview, right?
Yeah, right. It's Kamala Harris going to do an interview. I said, okay, great, cool. CNN, all right, fine. With Tim Walz. And I said, oh, man. Because I knew that that was going to be the issue. The issue is going to be, you know, and that's what all they've talked about is she can't do an interview on her own. She needs the male there to guide her and to take care of her and lead her. And you know, this is why I really think this is a mistake for her to do this first interview with him, because it feeds that narrative that they're trying to set, that she can't do anything on her own and she needs a male there to help her. I don't believe that is true. But when you do your first interview as the Democratic nominee and it is with him sitting next to you, I don't like the optics of that at all. Now, hopefully she'll come out and do another interview a day or two later by herself, because, you know, she can't just let this linger as like the only interview that she's done in a month is with him.
I mean, I don't think she should do any interviews. I just don't think it's necessary, personally, in the same way that I don't think she should be doing debates either. But I recognize that, you know, it is trialed by media in this country, and a personality competition in many ways. But maybe their thinking is that, well, Tim Walz has really knocked it out of the park, and they really are great together. They seem to get on very, very well. They're very complementary.
Yeah.
And maybe seeing this united front, because, you know, she does have negative history from the Republicans' perspective as being the vice president who didn't do anything for 4 years. That's the rhetoric that they're running. You know, they pretend she was a border czar when she wasn't. They've got this whole thing going. So maybe seeing her with this guy, you know, I'm just trying to look at a positive side of this, which is that actually Walz is such a great vice presidential candidate, and that also Democrats are all for inclusivity and equality, and why not have them sitting next to each other?
I think they're taking a page out of the playbook of Bill and Hillary Clinton in 1992, when really one of their first major interviews that they did was together. And in that interview, of course, it was a different time back then. The country was a little bit more sexist, I would say, a little more misogynist. And there was a lot of concern among the electorate that they were going to have this co-presidency and Hillary was going to be involved in policy, and first ladies never did anything like that before. And so they give this interview, and that's one of the first questions that gets asked, and they owned it. They came up, they said, look, yes, we are a team. We talk about everything together, and Hillary will play a prominent role in the administration. And I think that that's what Walz and Harris are doing here. Yeah. What they're saying is, we're a team. This is an administration. This is not about one man. This is not about Donald Trump, you know, the all-knowing, all-powerful. We're a team. We're an administration of many competent people, and we're presenting ourselves that way. This is a package. This is an administration that we're presenting, and here's the two of us who are going to be leading it. So whether the American people will respond to that sort of a pitch, I guess we'll see.
Because what's very important in this election is to get Republicans to vote Democrat just this once, because democracy is on the line, the future of the nation is on the line, and I suppose, you know, Tim Walz appealing to the people that don't care for a female who is a person of color, then maybe it's the right move. I mean, it's just so sad that in this country that is so divided in this way and so misogynistic and so very racist, that you have to do a dance in order to try and appeal to these different sectors of society.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but look, debate's coming up in 2 weeks, where she doesn't have any help there. So there's certainly many opportunities for her to be on her own in an interview setting. I'm sure she's going to be doing other interviews. It's an interesting strategic move to have the two of them do the first one together. Obviously, it's led to Republicans making that the issue. But, we'll see how it goes. I think what they also want is less of an interrogation and more of a freewheeling discussion, which you have with three people. When there's three people, there's
like a fireside chat.
Yeah, it's not really like a one-on-one, like cross-examination,
Just quickly on the debate, I've heard a lot of the commentary that, she's going to be great in the debate because she's a former prosecutor and she's not going to take any crap and he's not going to be able to talk over her because she has and I don't personally support any of that argument. I think that it is a lion's den going into a debate with Donald Trump. No matter how much experience you have, he has such a low opinion of Kamala Harris as a person, as a vice president, as a former prosecutor and DA. I think it's going to be a disaster. And I'm just predicting that here and now.
I hope she learned from the debates with Hillary. Because, look, Hillary was a very accomplished debater.
Yeah.
A very bright woman and, knew the issues inside out and backwards. Like every issue she was like an encyclopedia on it. But Donald Trump got under her skin and rattled her and bothered her at times, mostly with the interruption and the insults and all of that. So the question is going to be, if he does that to Harris, how is she going to handle that? How is she going to respond?
Because she's polling.
I will say this, though. Yeah. If she knocks it out of the park and really humiliates him and makes him look silly, which I think she's certainly capable of doing that. In other words, if he gives another debate performance like the last one, which I thought was god awful, which was overshadowed by Biden's issues.
Yes.
Lost in all of that is the fact that Trump's performance was dreadful. And I think if he does the same thing again, because he's going to be very overconfident, I doubt he's prepping it hardly at all.
Sure.
I think he thinks he's got this in the bag. He's going to destroy her. If she cleans his clock, that could have a really significant impact on the polls, much more so than previous presidential debates.
Okay. Well, if we're going to make any predictions, you and I clearly are going in completely different directions. My prediction is she's 3 to 5 points ahead in the polls at the moment. I think that the debate is a bad idea, and I think that he will rinse her in the debate through no fault of her own, and she could lose 2 or 3 points because of the debate. That's my prediction.
I would say that usually like 3/4 of the audience likes you better than me. And I think right now that just flipped, which is kind of nice.
I'm not saying it's her fault. It's not her fault.
No, I understand what you're saying.
He does not subscribe to any protocols. So, what people didn't notice in the other debate, the last debate with Biden, is that even when the little light wasn't on his podium to suggest that his mic was on, he was talking anyway and putting Biden off. He cares nothing for the rules. And, the other thing is that there are MAGA Republicans who like the idea of him being misogynistic, aggressive, putting a woman in her place, and all of that stuff that the Fox News audience plays into. And I'll play the Jesse Waters clip next, where him being a kind of overly masculine fool is going to play into the interests of some voters.
Here's what I'll say. I don't think she's going to do what Biden did and get bogged down on
not at all,
policy and talking points. No. I don't think she's going to try and rattle off statistics and memorize a bunch of stuff. And I think that that's good. I think if she makes fun of him, gets under his skin, gets him rattled and gets him mad, she's gonna win hands down. It's gonna be a huge win for her. Yeah. And I think that's the main goal. Is I think we're gonna actually see her be a little Trumpy here, and I think we're gonna see her with some zingers and try and needle him and try and insult him a little bit and go at him. And the question is, how is Trump gonna react to that? If he loses his cool, she will win this. So I don't think this is all about like a classic debate points like you might get in a college debate. Mm-hmm. This is about sort of atmospherics. This is about optics. And if she comes out looking cool and strong and confident, and he comes out looking like a stark raving lunatic, then there it is. That's what we're looking for.
Well, that's going to happen without a shadow of a doubt, because he's,
okay. Well, there's what I'm saying. It's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to the day after the debate when you and I can get back together and complete this conversation. Let's talk about Jesse Waters. This just shows, this is really a reference to what I was talking about, that there is a proportion of the Republicans who are misogynistic and they enjoy this goading of females. Let's take a look.
This is where the president has his most impact. You have a lot of room to maneuver there as commander-in-chief. We don't know who she is. We don't know what she believes. She's going to get paralyzed in the Situation Room while the generals have their way with her. Right now,
Jesse
Whoa, Jesse, I don't like that.
Figuratively,
Take
again,
it back.
have their way with her, control her, not in a sexual way. You're now.
He's a piece of work, isn't he, that guy? What was your feeling when you heard this? I mean, I know Fox can't get any lower, but Jesse Waters specifically is really a prime example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, when you have Judge Jeanine saying like you've gone too far, you've gone too far, and he actually issued sort of a half-hearted apology the next show. Not really an apology, but one of these like, I'm sorry if you were offended by what I said, and I didn't really mean what I said. This is not the first time he's made misogynistic comments about Harris. So, I was thinking about this the other day, and I tweeted about it because he replaced Tucker Carlson. So every time I get sort of mad at Jesse Waters, I sort of step back and go, wait a minute. We traded Jesse Waters for Tucker Carlson, right? Tucker Carlson was a very smart guy, a very diabolical guy, and a very conniving guy who had a plan, a long-term plan and a short-term plan for everything he did. And he's been replaced basically by this frat boy, this circus clown, this fool, Jesse Waters. So every time he says something offensive and obnoxious like this, it's sort of, yes, it gets me upset like it does most people. But at the same time, I always have in the back of my mind, you know what, though? I'd still rather have this than Tucker Carlson.
Interesting. I don't know that I agree with that. For me, Tucker Carlson is one of the most dangerous people to have a platform on the media. This guy, I would agree, is more of a clown. So, you can't really take him seriously. I mean, apparently he's only ever worked at Fox. Like, he started as a kid, as an intern. Yeah. And his whole career has been working at Fox, and he's worked his way up the ladder. He's going to be unemployable outside of Fox. That's the other thing. And so, I don't know. I find Tucker Carlson to be a little bit like Rush Limbaugh, where you look back on American history and you see where people have been brainwashed and have shifted to this extreme far-right position that Tucker Carlson must take a lot of responsibility for from the TV perspective, whereas Limbaugh was very much doing it on the radio. And for that reason, it's very hard to even think about
those are guys though that can go out and build an audience on their own on another platform, like a Megyn Kelly or a Rush Limbaugh or Bill O'Reilly or Tucker Carlson. Yes, Fox helped blow them up, but they also have the ability to go off and do something else somewhere else. Jesse Waters does not have that ability. You're right. If Jesse Waters gets canned by Fox at any point in time, and he's certainly crossed the line many times, he can't go anywhere. He just doesn't have the talent or the ability. He could never start like a YouTube channel and have any kind of an audience. There's no way.
Let's talk about these conspiracy theories about Tim Walz's dog that they've been talking about. I want to come on to Tim Walz's son in just a minute, but let's start with this story about the dog. I don't know much about this. I find it absolutely fascinating that they will literally pick up on anything. So here is a posting that Charlie Kirk put up saying Tim Walz is an all-time legendary liar because somebody else posted 2 posts from Tim Walz talking about his dog called Scout, and in each picture it's a different dog. Just explain this for us.
So Dustin Grage here, who had the original post, is a Minnesota guy. Walz is the governor of Minnesota. He hates Walz. And a lot of this old stuff that they're digging up comes from people like him, right-wingers in Minnesota that have had all this crap, whether it's about his National Guard service or deploying overseas or all these different, the tampon thing in the bathrooms, all these hoaxes, all these fake stories have been kicking around Minnesota politics for years about Walz, and they don't work. And so what they're doing is they're recycling this stuff on a national stage. They're bringing people like Kirk, people like Donald Trump Jr. are bringing this garbage into the mainstream. And so what you have here is this is an old Instagram post from that Walz made like 2 years ago, original, that you see their screenshot on the right. And this is an old post that he made. And what this guy says is, look, that's not his dog Scout. He said, I went to the dog park and Scout had a great time. So this guy's saying this is not even his dog. He's pretending to like dogs. He's pretending to be at the dog park. But then you go back and watch the original video, which I did, and you see he was there with his dog Scout, who was playing with this other dog that you see on the right. They were playing together in the video, and Walz was petting both of the dogs. So this whole thing is complete fabrication, completely fake and phony. And so it starts to go viral, and I watch, okay, who's going to take the bait on this? Who's going to jump in and retweet this? And it was the usual suspects. It was Charlie Kirk, a couple of senators, Mike Lee, Eric Schmidt from Missouri, another senator, Kimberly Guilfoyle, Donald Trump Jr., all posting this thing claiming that Walz never took his own dog to the dog park. He was basically like showed up at a dog park, grabbed some random dog to pose for a picture, claiming it was his dog. This is what the claim was when there was video on the whole thing. So it shows like the way that there's no fact checking on the right. They'll latch onto anything. They'll grab onto anything. And it sort of destroys their credibility on all the other stuff, the National Guard stuff, when they do hoaxes like this, it diminishes their own credibility. So,
but this is all projection, isn't it? Because this is how they operate. They're the ones who fake pictures.
Oh, yeah.
They're the ones who fake photo ops. They're the ones who pay people to be standing in Chick-fil-A when the ex-president randomly shows up.
And it's well known that Trump hates dogs, and they've had him pose with dogs before.
Right. I mean, some people say, and a lot of people write to me and say, that the sheer fact that Donald Trump never had a dog whilst he was president just proves the kind of guy that he is.
He never had a dog in his life. Oh, any pets. He's never had any pets. He doesn't like any kind of animals or dogs or anything, not even a goldfish. So, but as you said, they've had him. I've seen a number of campaign things where he's posing with a dog, pretending that he likes dogs when it's well known. His family members have talked about this. He hates dogs.
Yeah. So
because I think, you have to go like, what is the reason why he hates dogs? Dogs are friendly, affectionate, loyal, all the things that Donald Trump is not.
And also he's very into hygiene, as we know, which is why he only eats McDonald's, because at least you know where it's come from, he says. And
like a dog jumping on him or getting hair on him or licking him
or
he could never
shedding
handle
hair or any of he just wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
So very weird. Okay, on a serious point now, we have the abuse of Tim Walz's son, which has been something that they started a week or so ago. I think it was when the DNC was wrapping up. And this is, it is an appalling use of somebody to try and score political points. Let me show the first clip that kind of went viral. So this is... Who is this guy, George? I'll play it again. It's very short. There's no audio, so you can talk over it and just explain.
Yeah. So this is the clip that he posts, and this went super viral. I mean, probably like 8 million views on right-wing. This was all over right-wing social media. And what they're saying is, because it shows him yanking his son's hand as they're walking out on the stage with Harris. And his son, as we learned, has learning disabilities and this sort of thing. And so what they're saying is he was abusing his kid.
Yeah.
Right. by yanking his arm. Well, what they didn't show, which is what I posted, again, I feel like I'm constantly debunking these conspiracies.
Yeah, I have this other clip.
The other clip is from a different angle. And what you can see before you play this is there's a teleprompter there, and his son didn't see it. These things are clear, you know, and his son was about to smack his head on the teleprompter because his daughter, you'll notice, has to walk around it. She's right next to the son and has to stop and go around it because they're about to walk right into the teleprompter. So his son didn't see it. So what would have happened is his son with learning disabilities would have smacked his head, knocked over the teleprompter, and that would have been mortifying for him. And Tim at the last second sees that this is about to happen. So he yanks his arm to get him out of the way. And you know, it was completely harmless. And he really helped his kid out from a huge embarrassing moment in front of the world. And yet, what did right-wingers do? They deceptively edit it and they make it look like he's abusing his son. This is the way they operate.
Let's take a look at the other angle. Yeah, I mean, it's so sad. A, that doesn't even come close to constituting abuse. But secondly, that is a dad. And as a dad, I know, and I'm sure you do too, that you have a sixth sense and a periphery when you're out with your kids, constantly looking after them, looking out for them. And if you know that your child is either too near the road or too near the teleprompter, you're going to yank them because a small yank on the arm is far better than a glass break on the head.
Especially when there's 20 million people watching on TV and a huge stadium live audience.
Right, and a political jeopardy to deal with.
That kid would have had that as hanging around his neck for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
he smacked his head on the teleprompter on stage, and his father saved him from that and embarrassment, and they make a negative thing out of it, because they're so dark in their souls, and they had to know because they deceptively edited the video to make it look worse. Because as you saw the second video, you could see the daughter walk around the teleprompter, but you didn't see that in his video that he put out. And, the fact that they latch onto this stuff is just horrible, just disgusting.
I was thinking that all of the policy announcements, if there are indeed any policy announcements from Donald Trump, there aren't really. It's more just criticizing the Democrat policy. But everything that he says can be debunked. And that's why, some of us as, independent news people, we like to make videos of debunking the stuff and the same way that you debunk the stuff. I want to talk about the Afghanistan withdrawal hoax, which is something that Donald Trump has been leaning into in a massive way recently. He seems to think that this has political collateral and that, blaming Joe Biden for the withdrawal from Afghanistan, withdrawing the troops and leaving the equipment and everything. 95% of what Donald Trump says is untrue, and yet he said it so many times that it's become part of the vernacular. Especially the numbers that he comes up with, claiming how much gear was left behind and how much it costs and all this stuff. I mean, this is typical Donald Trump, but it's going to come back to bite him, isn't it? Let's take a quick look.
And $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment on the planet abandoned to the Taliban, right into the hands of the Taliban.
Yeah, well, none of that is true. They did not leave equipment. And, he also talked about 700,000 guns that were left. And he goes on to say, I don't even know why they would need that many guns. He said, well, now they're all being sold. You actually hear him making the stuff up on the fly. It's like his brain is like an open book. You can hear the cogs. A little bit like when he invented Space Force on the fly. You can see him put two and two together.
Or nicknames he does too. He
Right.
does the same thing. Yeah. I remember this quite well, of course, in 2021, and I was pretty upset at the Biden administration for not pushing back because
Yes.
I think he was out there saying this stuff when this first happened, and and the Biden administration largely ignored him. I think they just thought, he's a fly on the wall. We'll just pay no attention to him. He has nothing to say about any of this stuff anymore, so we'll ignore him. But he kept repeating this mantra about the withdrawal over and over, and then right-wing media started, and then this narrative started to become created about the withdrawal and how it happened, with no pushback, with no counter argument. Democrats didn't want to talk about Afghanistan. Biden didn't want to talk about it. They just wanted to move on and get this 20-year nightmare over with. But I think now, it's chickens come home to roost, because now it's an issue in the campaign. Trump's making it an issue. And this sort of stuff has never been pushed back on. The fact that he freed 5,000 of the worst Taliban fighters right before the withdrawal, and they're back out into circulation, that he drew our forces down. I think we only had like 2,500 people left in the country.
The whole thing was Trump's plan. It was Trump's plan to get out of Afghanistan. And Biden went through with it. He delayed it from May through to September. But ultimately, he was seeing through on a commitment that Donald Trump had already made in negotiation with the Taliban. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And here's the position that the administration has never really articulated, which is no one, the Trump administration, no one associated with it, no one expected the Afghan military that we spent 20 years training and equipping to collapse and surrender in a week, to completely fold up, for the president to flee the country. Nobody, there wasn't a single analyst anywhere who expected that to happen. But that's what happened. So we were caught with 100,000 civilians, 2,500, cramming into Kabul, trying to evacuate everybody out of the country much faster than we ever expected and intended. And the fact that only 13 service members were killed is a miracle.
Yeah.
And by the way, he says we left $85 billion. The total amount we spent over 20 years training, equipping, and paying the Afghan military was $82 billion. A small percentage of that was equipment. We took out all of our own stuff. We disabled the stuff that we couldn't take out. Okay, we destroyed it. So what is Trump saying? That he would have, what he says is he would have taken everything away from the Afghan military before withdrawing. He would have taken all their weapons away that we gave them, all their vehicles, and shipped it out of the country before we left. This is what no one has ever pushed him on this issue. What exactly are you saying? That you were going to disarm them and bring everything out first? And they were going to just surrender? Like his withdrawal plan, he's never articulated it. There's never been, all he's done is criticize the 13 deaths. And, I don't know if this is going to come up in the debate. It probably won't, because it's old news, but I really wish somebody with the Harris campaign would take him on these Afghanistan lies. Although, to be honest with you, I don't think many voters care that much about it at this point.
Well, it's old news now.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's important that people understand the facts.
To correct the historical record. Yeah.
I've got the CNN clip. I'll just play this. This is from Anderson Cooper's show, where he talks with, this is off the back of McMaster's new book. Here it is.
But Trump had his hand on, does Trump bear part of the responsibility for what happened?
Oh, yes. So the whole premise of talking to the Taliban before you leave Afghanistan, why the heck were we even doing that?
He was going to invite them to Camp David.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans under the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump
to
administration
withdraw.
forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stopped the active targeting of the Taliban, which President Trump, again to his credit in 2017, had restored, because he was convinced, how the heck does this make any sense? To give your enemy a timeline for your withdrawal and then say, now I'm going to negotiate a favorable settlement?
So it raises the
Yeah, well, that kind of puts it to bed, doesn't it?
Here's the problem. Why did we have to wait for a Henry McMaster's book 3 years later
Yeah, you're right.
to have this argument being presented on television? Why wasn't Lloyd Austin out there in 2021 on all the shows saying what he just said, McMaster just said, who I'm not a fan of McMaster at all. And he's selling books, but at least he's out there telling the truth about what happened. So yeah,
this has
been frustrating for me for 3 years because I've been listening to this nonsense, and I'm like the only one I feel like been pushing back on some of this stuff for a long time.
Well, me too, especially the imagery of that C-17 that, with all the Afghans hanging on to it, and Donald Trump has been embellishing what happened there, and he was like, it was taking off, and it wasn't. That was a cargo plane that had just landed. And the perimeter fence got breached, and these Afghan people ran to it for help and for safety. It wasn't taking off. They weren't all hanging on to it. But again, he rewrote the narrative, and that clip was played over and over and over because it was so dramatic.
It was probably the largest, the single largest evacuation of 100,000 people out of a country.
Yes.
In world history.
Yeah.
And it was done with 13 deaths. Yeah. I mean, and this is seen as some sort of colossal failure. When the Afghan military completely collapsed. And I think what McMaster
were under fire
right there is the seeds of that collapse were planted by Donald Trump.
Yeah. It's almost as if that's what he wanted.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's almost as if that this was intentional because, the Taliban had been tipped off. They were on their way. Towards the end of the evacuation, the military were under fire. I mean, you don't, and this as a former Marine, no military event, I was going to call it an exercise, but it's not even an exercise. It's an evacuation is done without collateral damage. It's built in. It's built into the plan.
Look at Vietnam. Yeah.
Right.
That was a mess.
Yeah. I mean,
and we didn't pull out nearly as many people and we had many more people on the ground there in Saigon than we did in Afghanistan.
And even the extraction of Osama bin Laden as well. They lost a helicopter.
I expected many more casualties than what we had. Many more.
Yes.
Because of once the Afghan military collapsed, I thought this is going to be a bloodbath. And it wasn't because it was done so well. But,
such
Trump
a different
just capitalized on it.
Yeah. Okay, let's stick with a kind of military theme just for a moment, because one of the most shocking events of Donald Trump's recent behavior was kind of exemplified at his appearance at the Arlington National Cemetery. Just, I'll put a photograph up. This image is just agony to watch. He goes there, turns it into a photo op, and is photographed with these poor families who have lost loved ones with his thumbs up, smiling. It was like, have a good time, everyone. Just talk us through this, Ron.
Well, there are 13 Marines that died, and 2 of these families are rabid Trump supporters. And they're not rabid Trump supporters because of what happened in Afghanistan. It's not like they were Democrats before and switched. They were always rabid Trump supporters. And Trump has sort of fed them this belief, that their children, that their sons, their daughters, is only dead because of the incompetence of Joe Biden. So naturally, they're even more willing to be used as pawns in his political game. Arlington National Cemetery is hallowed ground to the military. I mean, I've been there many times, and it's just like you almost can't speak when you go there, especially when you've served, because it's such a powerful experience, but not for Donald Trump. I mean, it's there to be used for politics, but there is no politics there. It's just a place where there's not supposed to be politics.
But that's like an embedded protocol, is that you do not use Arlington as a place to electioneer.
There's laws about it. It's basically like wearing a Trump T-shirt to a church, to a wedding or something.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing here. And it's disgusting and it's offensive. But see, these things don't occur. How offensive this is to like normal veterans would never occur to anyone connected with the Trump orbit, okay? Because everything is there to be exploited. Every death, every tragedy. And this is one of those tragedies. So they on the 3rd anniversary of this incident, and they go there, and I was watching it in real time, and they have everybody filming, and they're sending out photos, and they're posing for photos. And when I saw them pose for the thumbs up photos, I thought, he did it again.
Yeah.
This is the veil comes down for that split second where he can't help himself, where he's pretending that it's a solemn occasion and he's upset and everything else. And then the cameras go on, it's time for pictures, and it's
the porcelain veneers come out. And
same thing happened in East Palestine with the train derailment.
That's right.
Where they're all suffering and they don't have clean water to drink. And he decides to take advantage of that. And he goes up and the cameras come on and he's waving, he's smiling, telling everybody, have fun, everybody. This is the real Donald Trump, which is the huckster, the con man, the showman. He doesn't really care about these people. And every once in a while that veil comes down. Sometimes it's only for a split second, but you see the real Trump.
If you would allow me a brief promotion here, on the weekend show, the show I do here on Sundays, we have turned the guest over each week now to Dr. Bandy Lee, who is the psychiatrist who diagnosed his malignant narcissism. And we will be analyzing exactly this, what was on his mind, in his mind, during this process on Sunday. And we're digging deeper and deeper each weekend to actually make sense of him, because he, all I would say is he is so extremely unwell. And the point that the doctor makes is that he is not fit for any job, let alone the job of president, and has absolutely no ability to understand the magnitude of his behavior in these moments. Wasn't there also a scuffle that broke out?
That's what I was going to say. There's a postscript to this, which we also learned.
Yeah.
That, we weren't the only ones upset by this. Turns out that the officials at the Arlington cemetery were not thrilled. And I think what they thought is, okay, what they were sold by the Trump campaign is like, we're not going to make this a political event. We're not going to make it a campaign event. We've been invited by one of the families. They've become close to Trump. So he's going to go there to honor, lay some flowers at the grave. Okay, well, you're not going to deny anybody that. Fine. But the idea was they told him, like, don't try and turn this into, there's restricted areas. There's areas where servicemen were just buried. You can't go over there. You have to stay in this area. And of course, the Trump campaign promptly violated all of those agreements, violated all of those rules, and just blatantly turned it into a campaign event. And so one of the officials told him to knock it off. And they got into it with him. And apparently there was actually some shoving. So this is very typical. This is typical. The Trump campaign, they're used to controlling everything, the environment, and controlling the situation, whether it's fast food restaurants, rally venues, airports, whatever, setting things up the way and staging them the way they want them. But in this situation, there was a wild card, and that is the fact that they're doing it at a national cemetery, and the people who work there, they can't control them.
Trump and his people are just thugs.
They're gangsters.
They're like mobsters. Mm-hmm. And if you've watched The Sopranos or any of these types of things, you understand what their mindset is, and that is one of, well, we are the authority, and the authorities by protocol, by law, don't have, they operate in their own lane, and we often with violence. And that is a very scary prospect for a potential future presidential candidate.
You know what I heard from some right-wingers was, look, Donald Trump was the commander-in-chief, and he's going to be the commander-in-chief again. And so you can't tell him what to do in Arlington National Cemetery. He's in charge of this place. This is his place. He was a former commander-in-chief. So who are you, minion employee? here at Arlington to try and tell the former commander-in-chief what he can and can't do. This is their mentality.
Yeah, just no respect, just no understanding of how it works or who people are or what people are going through. It's
because there's other families there. See, these rules are not there. And the other defense is like, well, their family said it was okay. Well, there's hundreds of families out there that day.
Yeah, they didn't buy the whole place out.
Subjected to this.
Right.
You're ruining this for them. You can't just do what you want to do.
There are some on the right who recognize that the rise of Kamala Harris as a candidate is actually now quite seriously denting the Trump campaign if he's not doing it himself. I have this clip of the former Fox and Newsmax host Eric Bolling, who went on a bit of a rant. Let's take a look.
Too long, guys. You waited too long, Susie Wiles, Chris Lascividia. Get Corey Lewandowski in there and shake things up while you still have a chance. I'm not sure you still have a chance. We're losing. We're losing the race. We're losing the presidency. And I said a long time ago, Trump will be the last GOP president in our lifetime. And I meant it. Look at this. This is the ratings, not even including last night, the final night of the DNC, which they crushed it. Now, if you look, here's Fox News right here. And here is MSNBC. MSNBC is beating Fox News. Beating Fox. That's unheard of. And look at over here. Very quickly, I'll show you Newsmax. Newsmax is just not even existent. You see Newsmax right over here? That's Newsmax. They're sliding every week. Newsmax is down 5 weeks in a row. Maybe 6 since I left. Whatever. They're still not able to grab an audience. So no one's watching Newsmax. Fox is now getting beat by MSNBC. So the enthusiasm level on the left right now is overwhelming. You know what else they're doing? Have you seen this? They're trying to redefine the Democrat Party. They're trying to say that the Democrats are the patriots, the party that's worried about the country. They're wearing camo hats with Kamala Harris's name on it. Camouflage, that's ours. She was flanked in her speech last night by 2 American flags. There's no pride flag there. They're redefining it. They're going after our independent voters, the people. What's going on with Fox, by the way? I watch Cavuto, and all it is, Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. Fox is getting soft. Newsmax is getting non-existent. Damn it. The media is kicking our ass on the right. Wake up, guys.
It's so interesting because we might have a different opinion and say that the media is all out for Donald Trump. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, it was, I said this before the convention. I said, because I saw when she had a couple of American flags at her event and the crowd started at a previous event and the crowd started chanting USA, USA.
Yes.
And I saw how that really bothered right wingers. Because remember, they're all about symbolism and all about songs and flags and T-shirts and hats and signs. This is their thing. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, like, this is what we do. This is our game. And they're stealing our game from us. They're taking our playbook, our symbols, our slogans, and they're stealing it from us, and you guys aren't calling them out. You're not doing anything about it. And I knew that, and that's why I said I really hope that they do that at the convention, because I thought that would really rattle the right. I thought, Democrats holding flags and chanting USA is like kryptonite to Republicans.
Right.
It's like nails on a chalkboard. They can't handle it because the way that they view it is Democrats hate America. They're hostile to America. They're not patriotic. And so when Democrats do this, it shocks them. It really rattles them. And I'd like to see more of it.
Well, look, when the disgraced former president sides with Vladimir Putin over Ukraine or over election interference, then you have to ask who the true patriot is. Which candidate is the patriot? And as far as I can see, there is now increasing evidence, including this latest indictment with Jack Smith and this new grand jury, to suggest that Donald Trump is not a patriot. He is against the United States. And what I was saying at the beginning when my mic wasn't working is that when you look at the paperwork for these indictments, it's always the United States versus Donald Trump. or Donald Trump versus the United States. He is an enemy of the state. There is nothing patriotic about being investigated by the Justice Department.
Yeah, stealing documents.
Yeah.
I think it's just been a situation where Democrats have never really been that into all the symbolism stuff, and wearing
but they
things
need
on their
it now.
sleeve.
They feel it now because there is the loss of it potentially.
Yeah, and I think that this is just one of those times where you kind of have to be a little bit corny right now and embrace some of the symbolism, because that's Donald Trump's sort of superpower. That's what he relies on. He relies on wrapping himself in the flag and playing, proud to be an American and all of that. So if Democrats take that card away from him, what does he have left?
No, I think it's great. We don't have much long left, but I've got a few interesting clips. I wanted to talk quickly about this notion of Donald Trump, being presented as a great businessman, and the fact that he has all these skills, despite the fact that his stock is tanking. This DJT media stock is tanking, and then we have this hilarious clip from Fox regarding the stock market, where they're trying to now suggest that the reason the stock market is up is because the city is excited about the fact that Trump might return. Here it is.
Well, on that point, and you have every right to say that she was part of this administration whose record you criticize, and obviously some of it is unpopular. Don't they also get credit for things that are positive? For example, the record-breaking stock market, the Dow breaking 41,000 on Friday.
Well, that's simply because businesses think that President Trump is going to come back in, and so they're energized. A big part of that RFK Jr. endorsement that we had on Friday, which is huge. When you look at the numbers state by state, some of the states could be upwards of 13,000 to 20,000 votes. Other states, the RFK Jr. endorsement could boost by as much as 40 or even 50,000 votes. When you think about how close the margins are in this campaign, that endorsement alone could put President Trump over the top.
We'll come back.
Is anyone buying this stuff?
It's just such a ridiculous, preposterous argument. I can't believe that there was no pushback on this. Trump continues to say this in interviews, and these right-wing interviewers do not call him out on it. I hope this comes up in the debate. I really do. I hope Kamala uses this in the debate, which is, look, the stock market has been steadily climbing since 2021 when it was way down because of COVID. For 3 years, it's been climbing. It's been breaking records for nearly a year. So, I mean, the idea that, like, these hardcore shark businessmen with billions, these masters of the universe with billions of dollars at stake, are risking their fortunes because they think that Trump maybe is going to win, when it's a very much a 50-50 proposition by any stretch. Nobody can bank on either one of them winning right now. The idea that they would invest their fortunes, it's almost like they would bet it on a football game, on Trump winning it's just a complete asinine. It's the stupidest argument. Even an 8th grader has to know that this is a preposterous argument. But you know what else? Not one person has ever asked Trump or one of his campaign people about Trump's own stock. Trump Media, which is, as you can see there, is down. This is today. This was 6 months ago was $79 a share. Now it's 19. It's lost 75% of its value in 6 months. So they're saying that all these investors are so happy at the prospect of Trump possibly coming back that they're all putting their money into the stock market. Why aren't they putting their money into Donald Trump's stock? If that's the case.
You could argue that this graph, Ron, is a perfect comparison with Donald Trump's popularity. His popularity has wavered in line with his stock crashing. And, if we were discussing last week, I think it was, about him cashing out after September and him being able to, get some money so he can pay some of his court fines. But surely this stock crash is going to affect how much he can pull out of this company.
Look, here's the parallel. You got to parallel this. This is a crazy parallel, but I'm going to do this because no one's ever done this. But this is the really parallel here is between the endorsements of his former cabinet members and this stock. Because think about it. The only thing right now that is propping this stock up at $19, $20 a share is the fact that 300,000 cultists have put their money, Trump cultists have put their money in. So these neophytes, these people who know nothing about the stock market, who know nothing about the company, have bet their money on Trump. But none of the people who are smart enough to know better are betting any money on this. None of the sharks are putting their money on this. They short sold and pumped and dumped and got out. They're out. It's the rubes that are left holding the bag. And when Trump cashes out next month, they're going to be left with nothing. The parallel is, look at his administration. The people who know Trump the best, 40 of his 44 former cabinet members, his former vice president, will not support him again. The rubes support him. The knuckleheads support him. The cultists support him. But the people who really know, including many former generals and admirals, refuse to support this man because they are smart enough to know better. So it's the same parallel between what's going on with his stock and what's going on with the endorsements of his former cabinet members. The cultists stick with him. The people who are smart enough and who are savvy enough to know better want nothing to do with this guy.
There was a report out yesterday about analyzing Donald Trump's financial plans, his economic plan, suggesting that it will crash the economy, that it holds no value as a plan over the next 5 years. It will literally screw America's fortunes up. I mean, he doesn't have any expertise when it comes to withdrawing troops from a theater of war to anything. And this whole ruse about him being a great businessman and being wealthy, we've now seen from his tax returns that he is not as wealthy as he claims. We've seen that he didn't make any decisions on The Apprentice, which was the thing that made him famous. He was just taking direction. The guy is just a showman. And let's end with his latest grift, which is, of course, these new Series 3 digital trading cards where you get a small piece of the suit that he wore at the debate if you purchase at least 15 of these for the small price of $99 each. Let's take a look.
This is your favorite president, Donald J. Trump, with some very exciting news. By popular demand, I'm doing a new series of Trump digital trading cards. You all know what they are. We've had a lot of fun with them. It's called the America First Collection. 50 all-new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something. These cards show me dancing and even me holding some bitcoins. Here's the best part. I'm doing great things for my Trump digital card collectors. First, there's the real physical Trump cards. Purchase 15 or more of my Trump digital trading cards and we'll mail you a beautiful physical trading card. It's really, I think, quite something. Each physical trading card has an authentic piece of my suit that I wore for the presidential debate, and people are calling it the knockout suit. I don't know about that, but that's what they're calling it. So we'll cut up the knockout suit, and you're going to get a piece of it, and we'll be randomly autographing 5 of them, a true collector's item. This is something to give your family, your kids, your grandchildren. Number 2 is to purchase 75 of my Trump digital trading cards, and you will also be invited to join me for a gala dinner at my beautiful country club in Jupiter, Florida. We really have tremendous dinners with my collectors, have a lot of fun together. We're gonna have a good time. I'm keeping my Trump digital trading cards at the same price of $99 each. We've done that right from the beginning. So go to collecttrumpcards.com. It's really easy to buy. You just need an email address and a credit card or crypto. You know, they call me the crypto president. I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of people are saying that. So don't miss out. Go to collecttrumpcards.com. Go right now and collect your piece of American history. Let's have fun together and enjoy my Trump cards. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll be talking about it for a long time. Thank you very much. Have a good time.
Let the fight begin. I mean, come on, Ron. This now it's almost getting to the point of he is trying to lose the election by nature of his ridiculous grifts. Those pictures of him looking like a teenager with muscles in the same shot, it's like people watching you and me in the same shot thinking it's the same person.
Yeah, but nobody's taking advantage of this, so nobody knows about this. Swing voters have no idea about any of this, and so because I'm the only one who covers it. Like literally, I've been obsessed with this because I think it's incredibly important in this election. And I have documented all the Trump grifts. He's got over 200 products he's selling, whether it's Bibles or shoes or sneakers or water. Or it's one thing after another. Pieces of his suit that he's selling pieces of the suit from his debate. He sold pieces of the suit that he was arrested in. It's one thing after another. And I think that this is stuff. He sold T-shirts with his mugshot on it.
That's right.
This is stuff that those low information voters that don't care about that much about policy will see something like this and laugh and recoil and mock this fool, but they don't know about it because the press doesn't cover it. The press doesn't talk about the grifts. The Harris campaign doesn't talk about the grifts. The Biden campaign didn't talk about it. They apparently don't think that this is important or this registers or whatever. They think it's frivolous. But I know that it does. And so I just keep putting it out, hoping at some point the Harris campaign will do a montage of clips of Trump hawking all these products and make it a campaign issue, because this is one of the big reasons why he's running for president, because he tried for years to sell all these knickknacks and ties and vodkas and steaks and vitamins and failed. All of the businesses failed until he became president. Once he became president, now all of this stuff sells like crazy. Anything he puts his name on, and as he said in his deposition, this has been his lifelong dream, is to be able to make his name, his brand, worth billions of dollars. And he talked about it in his New York deposition. I want to get to the point where I can put my name on anything, a pet rock, and people will buy it. And he's there. And why is he able to do it? Only because he was president and he's still running for president. He has a financial stake, a financial motivation to run for president. And the fact that the media doesn't understand this and the Harris campaign hasn't used it is incredibly frustrating to me.
I can feel your frustration. I think everybody can. And so you'll be pleased to know that you can go and have a little lie down now and maybe a stiff drink. Okay, listen, we have to finish.
That sounds good.
That does sound good, yeah. Listen, thanks. All the best to you, Ron. Such a great opportunity to have this chat. We'll do it again next Wednesday here on the Midas Touch Network. If you wish to download the audio podcast, that'll be available later tonight. We ran a little bit long on purpose because we had a false start with some tech issues. Apologize about that. But we'll come back next week and do it all over again. So have yourself a good week. Take care, Ron.
You too.